seen Disney's Encanto, you may know that we don't talk about Bruno. No. But can we talk about Luisa? Hi, and to those of you who are new or lurking, in which case you can subscribe, welcome to the channel where I talk about arms and armour, women's histories, and the weird, unexpected ways these two subjects often intersect. And today's video is a little bit different because I won't be engaging with arms and armour content, though a sword does feature in terms of engaging with this character. And that character is Luisa Madrigal from the Disney animated feature Encanto. It's set in Colombia in the early 20th century and follows the adventures of the family Madrigal. They have been blessed with a miracle that gives them different powers that help grow the village that was initially created as a safe haven and itself was the first miracle that they were all blessed with. Everyone except the protagonist Mirabel. And as she tries to find her own place within this magical family, she also has to find a way of saving the miracle that is slowly fading away. So Luisa has been Luisa's doing the lifting here. So Luisa has been gifted with the miracle of super strength. So she's always moving things around for the rest of the village, doing these incredible superhuman things that nobody else can do. She moves mountains, she moves churches, and she glows because she knows what her worth is. She's also Mirabel's older sister. And Luisa actually does play quite an important part in Encanto because she's the first one whose powers start faltering and Mirabel realizes that something is wrong and slowly starts to uncover why the miracle is unraveling in the first place. And Luisa confiding herself to Mirabel in terms of feeling strong but also feeling all of this pressure that is building up on her leads to one of the best songs, in my opinion, in all of Encanto, which is Surface Pressure. All about how she's super strong on the outside and has to give off this facade of strength and responsibility, but on the inside is feeling very, very vulnerable as she's feeling this whole mounting pressure from the people around her, always expecting her to work non-stop and carry increasingly heavy loads, literally. So Luisa is one of these secondary characters that we spend a lot more time with in terms of screen time. And out of all of the characters, it's clear that she's proved extremely popular, and it's not hard to see why. She's lovable, she's goofy but sincere, she's funny and incredibly relatable in terms of facing different pressures from different people in your life and from society at large. But even before the film actually aired, even before we knew more about her actual personality, even in the trailer and promotional images for the movie itself, she was already attracting a lot of positive attention. And that's because, well, how can I put this in the most eloquent way possible? She buff. Her super strength is made visible by her towering frame and massive muscles. And the first time we see her in the trailer, she's carrying a pile of donkeys and also working out with pianos. I mean, what's not to love? And I think it's safe to say that people were overjoyed to find a character who was deviating from the norm that is so often imposed on different girls and women in Disney animation, which is quite a petite, slim, conventionally feminine frame, and it was an extremely refreshing change. And it's great to see this public positive reaction, given that there was apparently internal pushback from Disney in terms of having this character design out on big screen. Encanto illustrator and character modeling supervisor Dylan Ekren, in a post on an account that has now been made private, I think we all just wanted to do it in a way that worked well with the style and really made sense for the character, and I'm really proud of the way that she turned out. The entire team was so awesome. I just pushed buttons in the right order. It's obvious they worked really hard to make sure that their vision for Luisa's character design corresponded to her powers as well as her personality, which is really important. And in doing so, what I find great is that they managed to avoid some big stereotypes and assumptions when it comes to the depiction of buff ladies, but also buff people in general in animation and media. And they've made a significant contribution to the canon of buff characters in Disney animation, which so far has consisted mainly of a cast of men. And they do often follow certain tropes of not only character design, but also different perceptions of masculinity, gender in general, and buffness. So take a seat, it's time for Hunkaversity. Welcome. Please, take your seats. Yes, there will be a test. First, oh yeah, I've come prepared. Right, okay. Okay. Wait. Okay. It's not okay. This is huge. I did not prepare this. This is serious. This is hunkiversity, right? You're gonna learn the most important formative things of your life at hunkiversity. So first we have the jock. He is strong, but he is devoid of smarts as well as of a kind-hearted nature. The best example of this is Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. I'm French, so I'm saying Gaston the pretentious way, I guess. So okay, I'm just gonna say Gaston. Gaston's brawny appearance corresponds to his macho attitude and his self-centered nature. I mean, the dude has an entire song about how strong and how great he is. And don't get me wrong, it is a banger, but come on. I have antlers in all of my decorating. But he also thinks that women shouldn't bother reading because it might give them ideas. So, yeah. On a deeper level, within Beauty and the Beast, he also corresponds to the surface level idea of a hero at first sight until his darker nature is revealed and it turns out that he was really the villain. Then we have the himbo. A himbo is best defined as an attractive but kind of vacuous kind of man who is also usually implied to be kind in nature. And the best example of that in Disney animated canon is Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove, who in the film is essentially the villain Yzma's new boyfriend and hot sidekick whose buffness and just good nature is matched by his endearing ignorance of, everything. So Kronk is an interesting foil to Gaston, who is also shown as being ignorant, but in a very different way that is openly toxic, whereas Kronk, in effect, is a good character who reveals his good nature at the end. I'm sorry about the Emperor's New Groove spoilers, but to be honest, look at this guy. Did you really think he was going to remain a villain the entire film? And finally we have the hunk. Unlike the jock, he is kind, and unlike the himbo, he has both the brains and the brawn. And heroes like Hercules correspond more to the idea of the hunk in the Disney animated canon, because Hercules has more than a pair of nice pecs and a good personality. In fact, a running joke in Hercules is that Hercules keeps correcting people on their basic math mistakes. He also has the more self-possessed nature of the burdened hero, whereas the himbo tends to be happier and more clueless overall and more of a sidekick rather than a leader or a solo hero. I have had some recent debates with many people about whether or not Hercules is a himbo or a hunk, but I stand by my hunkanalysis. Thank you for joining us at Hunkiversity, and please leave your example of fictional himbos, jocks and hunks in the comments. I did say there would be a test. So overall, there's a lot more guy heroes I can mention, but it's worth noting that there's actually a variety of different character design when you look at just different guys in Disney animation. But when it comes to visibly buff Disney girls and women, things are a bit more restrictive. When you look across the range of Disney heroines, even the ones who would benefit and it would make sense for them in a story to have a little bit more brawn, usually still fit an archetype, a slim and petite one. Even more action-oriented characters like Mulan with all her warrior women skills, or Merida with her archery and horse riding. Yes, I know Merida is from Pixar, but I just really wanted to talk about Merida. Maybe Namari in Raya and the Last Dragon breaks that mold somewhat with her strong arms and her general demeanor as a warrior woman, but even then can be considered the same average height and build as other Disney girls and women. When women break the mold in terms of body diversity, this tends to be either as secondary characters or as villains, like Ursula, for example, who incidentally was modelled off the drag queen Divine. So it's all the more refreshing to see that Encanto has taken great steps to present refreshing alternatives to this in lots of different ways. So Luisa takes on different visual cues from positive buff heroes, usually associated with masculinity. Quite literally, in the song Surface Pressure, she takes on the role of Hercules, even wielding a sword and a shield, which, not gonna lie, I was very happy about. But interestingly, she herself comments in the song that she's reluctantly taking on this role, asking if Hercules ever said that he didn't want to fight Cerberus. It's very clear in her characterization that she doesn't resent her strength, she's proud of it, but she resents the fact that it constantly puts her in a role that she did not always ask for. But what I really like about that line, and the passage with the sword and shield, is also that she questions how other super strong archetypes, regardless of gender, may also have felt that way and feel that way in general. And similarly, I think it would have been very easy to make Luisa a traditionally butch character. And don't get me wrong, I would like to see more of that representation in terms of buff women owning and reclaiming things that are traditionally seen as masculine. I think it's definitely needed. But what Encanto has done with Luisa, for a Disney audience that is so accustomed to seeing a positive girl role model as petite in order to be feminine, is to instead show a character who embraces her strengths and buffness as well as her femininity in her own special way. And that can be from the ribbon in her hair to the cute little waist on her skirt. Seriously, I just love this design detail. And that seems to have been embedded from the very start in her concept art, where you can see Luisa being her strong, powerful self, but also just having a soft side, just loving cute things, loving feminine, frilly things, and I think that's amazing. And in terms of inspiration, when it comes to Luisa's character design, which conveys this idea of traditional heroism and strength while making her femininity shine through, I think that Encanto, set in the early 20th century, also paid homage to an image that would have been prevalent at the time, at least in vaudevilles and circuses: the strong woman. The strong woman traditionally portrayed big demonstrations of strength to an audience, which could include juggling people or lifting massive record-breaking objects. These women were presented as exceptions to their gender, and there's really some framing of this in the context of the circus in terms of othering and provoking a reaction of shock and kind of curiosity, which there's a lot to unpack there in terms of gender norms. But I think there are also more positive ways of framing this as well, with the perception of these women as heroic figures on par with men, and also embracing their femininity in different ways. Women like the wrestler Minerva, said to have lifted 18 men, or Vulcana, who had a heroic track record outside her music hall career, just jumping in rivers to save people, helping solve crime, also rushing into a burning circus to save horses, or even the performer Charmion, who had a scandalous trapeze act, at least for the Victorian period, who played with ideas of femininity and strength their entire career. Playing on shock value and contrast, yes, in the context of the circus, but also provoking admiration. And in terms of that visual and cultural legacy, with Luisa, we have that sense of complexity and ambiguity. She's a hero, but far more than a brawny hero who thinks after she punches. Instead, she's shown as kind-hearted, but also extremely self-possessed and perceptive, and whose show of vulnerability is in-depth and sincere. And people loved it, so much so that while Disney had banked on the gendered assumption of little girls loving Isabella with her pretty pink dress and her flower theme, demand soon grew for Luisa merch, which I love because it just proved Disney the corporation completely wrong. And she isn't only a refreshing role model for young people. Adults watching Luisa could relate to the character not only emotionally but also physically, like Maribel Martinez, who can relate to a character who looks like her, but also her role as a middle child filled with immense pressure. And if you check out Maribel's TikTok, you'll see different ways in which she's cosplayed and talked about the character and how she relates to her in so many different ways, and it's just really, really brilliant to see, and great to see this character reinterpreted by somebody who is a lesbian. And on that note, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how strongly Luisa resonated with queer women when she first appeared. And I think this appeal is a lot more than surface level. Although it's lovely to note that while we're on the subject of queer interpretations of characters, Jessica Darrow, who lent her lovely deep voice to the character, another really distinctive, refreshing detail when we think about all the lovely but slightly more higher pitched voices for other women and girls in Disney, has hinted about her own queerness. When it comes to Luisa, I think labeling her as one thing only just because she subverts certain gender norms is not really the point and can come across as a little bit reductive. Really, I think in terms of Encanto and beyond, we could just consider that any character has queer potential. Encanto is a film that is not about romantic relationships, it is about family. And there's actually lots of different ways in which you can take the themes of Encanto in terms of experiences of community, acceptance, and generational trauma, finding a sense of belonging, that do actually engage with themes of queerness, just in ways that aren't necessarily rooted in who you love. And I think really what many people are drawn to with Luisa is that idea of different themes of difference and identity and accepting yourself, in terms of bringing together different masculine and feminine assumptions and essentially rejecting being defined in any way just to be your own person, and going beyond anything that is thrust upon you in terms of norms or in terms of a given role or responsibility. And I think that that is a message that we can all carry with us as effortlessly as Luisa can carry a mountain of donkeys. I know, incredibly inspiring outro. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, you can like, comment, you can let me know what you thought about Encanto. And if you have been lurking for a while, if you're a sword lover but also a sword lurker, you can also subscribe. I also have some links down in the description down below where you can donate to different causes and just stay informed and involved with what is happening at the moment. Stay safe, sword lovers, and see you in another video.